Hello everyone, welcome to the second episode of League Around the World. As usual, I'm joined by our NA representative Izento to my right. And of course on the far right we have Ashley, our Korean representative. And I guess that only leaves me, Darius, as the EU representative, of course being relatively happy with the MSI results so far. And yeah, MSI has been fantastic. Group stage has just finished. 4 teams have left the group stage, not including EVOS and Team Liquid, and I think we have a lot to talk about. Lots of positives that were takeaways, lots of negatives, but overall, what did you guys think? Oh, actually, let me just go through the schedule for today, and you guys can obviously check out the timestamps in the description and on the top rated YouTube comment that is pinned to the video. So first up, we just have this little intro, then we'll reflect on MSI as the whole tournament so far in general. Then Izento will talk about his thoughts on Team Liquid's performance. Ashley will talk about Kingzone. I will talk about Fnatic, and then we'll all talk about RNG, Flash Wolves, and EVOS's performances. Then we'll talk about the top 3, our personal top 3s of best performers or overperformers of the tournament, and the flop 3 of underperformers. Finally, we have the predictions for Paris and some hot takes, maybe even some bets, because I bet that Fnatic would actually make it to Paris, but now I have to do 200 push-ups. I've already done 140 in the last day, so I have to do 60 more today, and we'll see about that. But yeah, did you guys like MSI so far? Ashley, what about you?
I've been really enjoying it, and the only issue I have with the MSI games is it starts about 9 PM for my time, and it finishes about the 3 AM, and because
Lucky.
the games have been... Why?
I think so as well.
Yes, NA time. Okay, I'm not gonna complain, but because the games have been so exciting and all the teams have been playing really well, and every game mattered until the very last day, that I haven't been able to skip a single day, and I've been extremely sleep deprived the last week. But yeah, really enjoying it. I'm so glad that all the teams have stepped up. Maybe not Kingzone as much, but they have all stepped up, and like every day, like the expectation seems to change, and another team brings up a new meta, and really also really fun to see interesting picks like Israel double tier and Yasuo mid, Yasuo top, and yeah, been really entertaining so far.
What about you, Izento? What did you like and dislike about
This
MSI?
tournament fucking sucked. It was all bad. We should have gone to quarterfinals or semifinals, whatever. It's just, man, this tournament is it was pretty good. The only qualms that I do have about it are, I know Travis made a video talking about the size of EU LCS and how it only seats like 170 people or something, which I thought was kind of odd for Riot to make the decision to have it at the EU LCS. So that was a little bit disappointing. I know as a business, you have to make financially sound decisions and whatnot, so it's understandable in that regard, but it's still like a little bit disappointing in terms of like the grandeur type of shit. So I don't know, like what do you guys think of the actual venue itself? I mean, no disrespect to the ULCS studio, but like what do you think about it, Darius?
Actually, I was gonna bring this up. Thank you very much for the transition, and this wasn't planned, by the way. So double the kudos to you. On one hand, I agree. Of course, it's 170 people that actually are seated. There are like 20-30 odd press people, 20-30 odd Riot people. So it's like around about 200-250 people in total. And I asked Quickshot the same question, and he's like, "Well, it is kind of a business decision. It's also a decision to have already have a setup that where you can produce high quality content and be 100% certain that it's all going to work out. Whereas like if you rent out a stadium and stuff like that, there can be technical difficulties, and we've seen that a lot in the past. Let's be serious here. So that was kind of some of the reasoning behind those decisions. Of course, it's very a good thing for the people that are working at EVOS that they don't have to travel all the way and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, let's be real, all the relevant regions made it to Paris anyway. So like they get all the big fans, like they get the big crowd. So, you know, and if you don't make it there, then you're clearly not relevant enough. You know, that's just how it goes. So there's gonna be a lot of this podcast. I can feel this.
I'll just take it all in stride. It's fine. It's fine.
For now.
Like,
but that said though, they had some amazing on-site production. So like they would put up banners of the respective regions. They had like the cup being present. They had a lot of stuff. RNG even brought like fan signs. Flashwolves brought fan signs, so like you could get posters of Uzi and stuff like that. So that was really cool. In general, I think if you were able to attend, it was a great event. And even, you know, sitting in the audience for many of the games, being able to feel the energy in some of those amazing wins for Fnatic or RNG, those fans were really loud as well. It created a really big mood, a great mood, a great atmosphere. So even though it could be better, for me personally, as someone who's attended live, it was still a great experience. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't like the audience. At least in the first 2 days, I thought the audience was pretty quiet, I guess.
But after the Fnatic win against Kingzone, they literally were chanting until the pick and ban phase of the upcoming game.
Yeah.
So it's like after that one, the crowd went crazy. Of course, you're not going to see that many Team Liquid fans, but even then, you had like 5 Team Liquid fans that were die hard, and they would legit go up against those 150, 180 Fnatic fans, and that was a great thing to experience.
And I just loved when especially towards the later few games, whenever RNG was playing, it almost felt like you were watching an LPL game, because they were like, RNG, it was, I think it was Dio they were saying, which is almost like, fighting in Chinese, and they were chanting that for the first 5 minutes of the game, and
I remember that.
Just really love that vibe that the other region teams, like fans, bring to the games.
For sure. Like those, big shout out to all the RNG fans that flew all the way. Well, I would assume at least some of them flew all the way to support their team locally. That was insane to watch. And even like some EVOS fans, you know, like there were a handful of them that attended live as well, and those guys were loud as well. So all the respect to them.
What I'm curious about also is that since everything's going to Paris, and the live broadcast is supposed to be in French because of that whole broadcast rule in France. So I'm wondering how the live experience is going to change for the people there instead. Because like as an American that doesn't know really any other languages, it's just like, okay, so now you're stuck with this French audience listening to French casters. So I don't know.
This was it from Europe. We'll see you guys in Paris. That's pretty much the NA education system in a nutshell. Did you see that when Chad said that? This is it from Europe. We'll see you guys in Paris. That was great. But I would assume that the fan culture would still be amazing. It's kind of like going to an LPL game in a way. So like you won't be able to understand anything, but you'll be able to pick off the vibes and pick off the mood and stuff like that. That's what I would assume.
And I can definitely answer that as an LCK fan who sometimes watches the Korean cast and sometimes watches the English casts. And in the end, the ban and pick and ban happened at the same time. The game started at the same time. Like all the hype moments will happen no matter whether you're listening to the Korean cast or the English cast, and you don't feel that off vibe.
Yeah,
I would say. Yeah.
You see Pentakill, you'll go crazy. It's like, it doesn't matter whether it's in French or Chinese or Spanish. It's like Pentakill.
The Korean fans scream and the casters go wild. Like it all happens at the same time. Especially when you're in the game, you barely notice the difference.
Yeah, I would assume so as well. Anyway, what wasn't so great at MSI was Team Liquid's performance. So, Izento, what happened with TL going? It was 0-4, right? Like, what happened there? I mean, to be fair, all the rudeness and bias aside, that was my pen, bye-bye. All the rudeness and bias besides, I do think it's very amazing how they made a comeback. But yeah, from an NA's perspective, what went wrong? What could have they done better? Tell me.
Okay, so, you know, as everyone knows, TL started off 0-4, the worst possible outcome, you know, that you could think of, at least in the beginning. And towards the later parts of the tournament, it was all riding upon, you know, us hoping that other teams fuck up. So already when you're in a tournament and your fate is decided by other teams and not your own, then that is like a really big problem, right? And that becomes incredibly stressful. And so, of course, in the first 2 days, they had cited that Ole was having confidence problems, right? And they had Joey sub in for one game, looked terrible, and they were just like, all right, no, abort. But the bot lane looked pretty bad. I mean, not gonna lie, Ole did look bad, but more specifically, it seemed like Team Liquid weren't playing towards their normal strengths. I mean, for God's sakes, they got Yasuo, Pobelter on Yasuo. Name a more unlikely combination. Like, that's not the type of player that you want on Yasuo at all. Pobelter is not this. He's not this hyper, you know, solo carry type guy who split pushes in a side lane and kind of draws pressure away from the rest of the team. That's never been his style in the entirety of his whole career. That has never been his style. So I don't know why you would think it would work at the biggest stage. It doesn't make any sense to me. I guess maybe the reasoning is that it's meta, you know, and everyone else is playing Yasuo, so we have to pick this up. This is like a must. But at the same time, well then, you know, you have 3 bans in order to actually ban that out. So you have to make a sacrifice somewhere else on the map to cover for your mid laners, champion pool and champion style. So I think they should have just bit the bullet. They should have banned Yasuo and not had Pobelter on Yasuo. So that was one of the glaring problems that I saw, at least in the beginning. I was pretty disappointed with that pick in particular. And then just the bot lane in general, just they kind of looked bad. I don't think they had great synergy at all. They were taking bad trades. They just looked super desynced, as everyone realized. But then later on, they started picking it up, and maybe it was due to, you know, that sort of confidence. So I don't know, like from an outside perspective, what do you guys think about, you know, Team Liquid and in particular the bot lane?
I have to say that Team Liquid in general looked a lot better than their results would assume, at times at least. I think both of their games on day one against EVOS and Kingzone were winnable, and I think their game against Kingzone in particular, they showed that they had a lot of strengths, and that Double was actually a really good ADC. I have to give a special shout out to him, because I genuinely think that Doublelift played a really good tournament, or like a good tournament. I think even though he had he got all the resources he needed, so like his team would constantly play around him, he still performed really well. And even though he had a lot of pressure, you know, he had those games on Caitlyn where he just completely popped off. So I think he played well. Ole, you know, being subbed out for Joey, and like that whole decision honestly made no sense to me. I get the idea of wanting to bring in change, just to have change after 2 losses, but like those 2 losses to me were not as detrimental as maybe the Team Liquid people saw it, and that kind of even more screwed over Team Liquid at the end of the day, because I definitely think they could have won their 3rd game if they would have had Ole instead of Joey, because yeah, he just pretty much looked non-existent. Impact looked like night and day. Sometimes he would put an amazing performance in on Shen, and then he would look awful on Vladimir. So I don't really know what was going on there. Amazing tank player, but can't really play that much else apparently. And Pobelter,
So all right. So remember last episode, I talked about how to defeat Team Liquid. And in day 3, we saw that exact way of how to defeat Team Liquid, which was, I think it was versus Kingzone. And Kingzone did exactly that with their Camille pick. They split apart the map, and then during team fights, they split apart the team fights, and they didn't allow Team Liquid to fight front to back at all. And we all know that Team Liquid basically play around Doublelift himself. Now, the problem with Team Liquid this entire tournament was pretty much their control from the mid lane. I think Xmithy played very well in terms of tracking the enemy jungler, or just knowing where to be on the map and being very efficient with his routing. But Pobelter was the person to kind of hold them back, because he couldn't generate pressure in the mid lane at all. And then when it came to rotations towards the side lanes, he was fucking non-existent pretty much. And it was really bad. I mean, even with the tiebreaker game against Fnatic, right, where Impact was playing Vladimir in top, both teams were fighting control for top lane, and Pobelter constantly had to TP towards side lanes as a reactionary effect, not proactively. And so basically Team Liquid weren't using Pobelter in terms of trying to be proactive around the map. They were using him mostly as a response to whatever the enemy team was doing, and you could see this happening throughout the entire tournament. And when you look at Pobelter's regular spring split, especially during the finals, he was very proactive with his roams. Even on fucking Azir, he would be roaming to create plays in the bot lane, and that just really didn't happen this tournament. And I don't think Pobelter looked good at all during this entire tournament. So.
I have to say, Pobelter really, I've always been a big proponent, or like a big fan of Pobelter in many ways, especially during his time on CLG and Immortals. I think he was really, really good. But you could already, even back then, you could see that his best way of playing is playing supportive mid laners. You know, when he really shined, he was playing Lulu mid. So yeah, like seeing him on Yasuo was awful. Like, it's kind of like Caps' Yasuo is the enemy Yasuo in your rank game, and Pobelter's Yasuo is the Yasuo you get in your rank game. The difference exactly is night and day. Of course, the meta was heavily favored in that aspect towards, for example, I would say Fnatic, and not towards Team Liquid. So maybe we have to cut them some slack there. But Pobelter in general, I mean, again, you could argue, okay, in the tiebreaker game against Fnatic, for example, Caps is on a Taliyah. Taliyah can roam really, really easily at the end of the day and create like ganking pressure all day long, because you know you wall them in. It's super easy to get them picked up. You get the extra movement speed if you just slide around the edges of the map. So it's harder to roam or like counter roam against someone like Caps on a Taliyah, but he was still playing. He was Karma, right? So it's like he still has additional movement speed, and even then, like Caps would roam 24/7. He would set up Bwipo 24/7 because they know, hey, Bwipo is that gangplank. We need to get him fed against the Vladimir because that's gonna be painful. So like Caps was ganking every 2 minutes, bot lane as well sometimes, and still was out CSing Pobelter by like 15 CS at like what, 10 minutes, which is, how do you roam more and still have more CS than your enemy mid laner? That is not supposed to happen, no matter what like the champion matchup is and stuff. And you know, yeah, Yasuo differences were huge. I think Xmithy, we need to give a shout out to him, stealing Barons again, playing really solidly. You mentioned Zento, tracking down junglers, great stuff. I think he was the best Team Liquid member, so he would get like an A from me. Doublelift would also be basically not get any criticism. Impact was a coin flip for me. All A, disappointing. Pobelter, ouch.
Yeah, that's basically the entire tournament for TL. So, you know, we didn't show up as like this macro heavy base team that it was supposed to be, and that is probably also due to the fact that there are just stronger laners now. Within MSI, you're fighting against the best laners in the world, so you can't just kind of sit on your laurels and just be like, all right, we're just gonna go for mid game and late game, and then we'll beat them through macro rotations and stuff, which NA's macro, it's not even that good anyways. Like you were facing against 100 Thieves who just know how to run it down mid. So like I mean, there's not a whole lot of competition in terms of studying macro and kind of perfecting your craft in that sense. So I don't know. It was a really disappointing tournament from Team Liquid.
Would you take back your statement from last episode saying that Team Liquid's macro is as good as a bottom mid-tier LCK team?
No, I don't think I would take that back necessarily. It was mainly that I think there was an over-reliance of Pobelter overperforming, because if you look at Pobelter's play style and just history as a player itself, he is like this self-sustaining mid laner that is able to kind of recoup losses, and that's really about it. He doesn't make a whole ton of plays around the map. He's just very consistent, right? But when it came to him within this tournament, well, in Spring Split, he was like just popping off. He was roaming around everywhere. He was making plays around the map and helping his team as a supportive player. But that's not really the true Pobelter. Now you've seen, the dark side of Pobelter, which is that he remains very stagnant, and he's not able to create advantages around the map for his teammates. And it's not necessarily that he's going to get smashed in lane, but he's not going to be a help within the entirety of his team. So I don't think necessarily that Team Liquid's macro was very bad. I know there was a game, I want to say it was against Kingzone, to where they were losing bot lane, and so they had to lane swap in order to recoup their losses, which was a really good idea. So it's not that they've lost their whole identity as like a macro-based team. It's just that they haven't been able to compete with the mid lane competition, as well as just laning prowess.
All right.
So,
well, speaking of Kingzone and underperformance in a way, Kingzone only placing third in groups was a big upset, I would say. So Ashley, what are your thoughts on Kingzone's performance, and why have they not taken first place?
Yeah, I remember us having this podcast about 2 weeks ago, and we were discussing how is any team going to even take a game from Kingzone, and now we're sitting here and we're in the third place, barely, with Fnatic taking a game from Kingzone, Flash Wolves taking a game, pretty much everyone.
2 games.
Oh yeah, 2 games. Everyone except Team Liquid taking a game from Kingzone.
Yeah.
And even
unlucky.
that looked
Just unlucky.
And not even
all.
that looked close. So yeah, Kingzone all of a sudden looked weak and beatable.
Yeah, and their whole motto coming into MSI was them being another level, but now even going to the finals look like a very, very close competition at the moment. I'll say that the semifinals is in the favor of Flash Wolves at the moment. But if I had to talk about why Kingzone is has underperformed, my 2 reasons will be: first, the Kingzone's aggressive playstyle has always relied on all of their laners performing really well in their respectable lanes. But however, especially okay, I have to pick out two players. Khan and Gorilla have been really underperforming compared to the original expectation coming to MSI. And the nature of the Kingzone has been that, any laner could carry, and even if one laner is falling back behind because other laners were ahead so quickly, they would simply rotate and fill out the gap. But when more than two lanes are underperforming against your opponent, the Kingzone playstyle falls off, and it almost looks like they don't know how to deal with that kind of situation. And you can almost see that hint of tilting from some of the players they pull out. And it's quite unfortunate when you're the dominating team for so long, then perhaps you don't get enough practice when how to play in an obviously losing situation. Why are you smiling so hard in the presento? It looks like you want to add something to that.
So the whole storyline of what I think about Kingzone within this entire tournament is the only reason why they lose or why they have lost is because they're fucking cocky as shit. They are so cocky. There was one game to where they had tracked the enemy jungler the entire time, and yet they allowed, I believe it was against Flash Wolves, and they had tracked the enemy jungler the entire time, and Peanut kept on stealing jungle camps. And so there was nowhere for the enemy Lee Sin to go anywhere because they had all the camps warded. So it's like, okay, well, he's not here. Either he's lane ganking or he's jacking off in a corner. I don't know.
As a quick side note, I think that was, you mean the series against RNG where Peanut was playing Graves and MLXG was playing Lee Sin, and Peanut was MLXG, 2 levels ahead. He was like he had 6 camps. Lee Sin had like 1 or 2 or like just a few wolves, and it looked like game over because it was 0.
And I do have something to talk about that, but okay, you go.
Well, and so when you're put in that situation, which Khan did a 1v2 in top lane and still got a kill, which is pretty impressive, but that was just because he's mechanically good, right? But that doesn't mean that it was necessarily the correct play. So it just seemed that Kingzone disrespected RNG that entire match and allowed them to come back and allowed them to win the game. So games like those, it's really disappointing, and it's really easy to see that Kingzone think that they're better mechanically, and so therefore they can win off of that itself. And that's what we had talked about in the first podcast, was that okay, you get early advantages, you tilt them, and then you win the game after that, which is exactly how RNG were able to play that game itself too. It's just like, oh, you think you're winning, and then you suddenly disrespect us, and you don't think we're gonna go for these plays because what, you think you're mechanically better than us? Yeah. No. Have you met my friend Uzi? No.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that game, I agree, was extremely tilting because I was watching the game. I remember halfway through the game, okay, should I go to sleep now because it's 1 a.m. and it looks like Mila's probably taking the game. Well, I am glad that I watched till the end because I was really glad to see MLXG come back from all that. And I do think that Kingzone players have a tendency to get cocky sometimes, and perhaps that shows off even more in BO1s because you don't get a moment where you get really cocky in terms of pick and ban and your playstyle. You lose the game, you go back to the waiting room, and the coach tells you, hey, you guys, you just lost the game because you guys played very cocky, and then let's take a step back and reorganize and play the second game differently.
Yeah.
You can't have those conversations and resets in best of ones, so I'm quite interested how Kingzone would perform on the semi-finals, which I do believe is best of 5.
Best of 5 against Flash Wolves, of course, and that will be an interesting match to watch. I did have the same feeling about Kingzone, that they were cocky, that they did not respect certain individual players, from like starting from BDD going up against Caps and like just getting killed, from Khan going up against Bwipo and having no respect for Bwipo whatsoever. Which to an extent, I mean, your name is Khan. You're like known as this deity figure in the top lane right now. And then you go up against like some European kid that just came up, that got subbed in luckily because, you know, Soas get injured and stuff. Like, who is this guy? And then all of a sudden, Bwipo plays a fantastic game on Ornn, and Broxa, you know, really putting it in as well, putting in the pressure. And all of a sudden, you have a losing lane, and you lose your top lane tower, and all of a sudden, everything goes wrong for Kingzone. Many fights were didn't look planned enough in a way, you know, trying certain dives which didn't work out, and especially against people like Uzi and like mechanically gifted players who just can't pull that kind of stuff. But I don't get it whatsoever, some of the decisions made there. But as you've mentioned, Ashley, I would assume that this balances out in a best of 5 scenario. And the game against Flash Wolves will be very interesting. Of course, Flash Wolves are 2-0 against Kingzone, partially because Kingzone weren't able to handle the early game pressure.
Yeah, and talking, by the way, Emily Rand has written a really great article about how Kingzone is the new SKT and the whole Korean killer standing of the Flash Wolves, which you guys should really read. About the early game, another thing that I've read which was quite interesting was it almost feels like Kingzone hasn't adjusted to the more recent meta where the level 1 skirmishes, especially around the jungle side, has become extremely important. And now we see aggressive picks like Graves come up. Now we see mid laners like Yasuo come up, but Kingzone is still drafting Jax, the tanky champions, and even when you give Graves to Peanut, it almost looks like as a team they're still focused in the mid to lane game strategy and not enabling Peanut to gank early on. Maybe it's Peanut's decision, maybe it's the team's decision, but this has been a meta where early game skirmishes has become much more important, and I don't think Kingzone has adjusted to that in terms of their picks.
I agree. I agree completely. And I think maybe people don't want to give credit towards these wildcard teams. You know, for EVOS, for example, that jungler Yijin is so insanely aggressive, it boggles my mind. Like the thing about aggressive junglers is that they can sometimes be so aggressive to where they do like a bronze move that you would not expect them to do because they're in a professional setting and you should not be invading during this time. But guess what? He's going all in and it becomes like this challenger move instead. You know, it's just kind of like when a challenger player doesn't dodge, he just goes straight, like as a mind game.
The other guy is challenger and he expects the dodge, therefore like he puts a skill shot there.
So that's like that's the reverse psychology. Like just he's playing like this bronze jungle, just going in there and not respecting vision, not respecting lane priorities at all.
But that works at this
and
meta.
So when you
that you almost
exactly. It makes me think that these wildcard teams have more of an effect on the meta than one would assume. And we start seeing these heavy invades and these heavy level 1s, which reportedly, I guess, Fnatic has always been good at doing level 1 strategies in terms of jungle pathing or invades. But in North America, that's not necessarily a popular thing to do. So when looking at the meta like that and seeing that EVOS have kind of changed the meta in a sense, I would say, is very peculiar same thing with Flash Wolves as well too, with being very aggressive in the early game.
Yeah.
So
I think Flash Wolves' aggression also got them a lot of wins early, but we're gonna talk a lot more about Flash Wolves in a second. Just some like final thoughts, bringing up EVOS and the way they play. For example, watching EVOS games against Kingzone versus watching EVOS games against Flash Wolves. Flash Wolves completely dismantled EVOS. Kingzone won against EVOS, but it didn't look as completely crushing as the Flash Wolves games. Like Flash Wolves versus EVOS was a massacre, right? Because what Flash Wolves did, okay, they see these like aggressive invades and they just lay it back, you know, call in your people and then just counter that essentially. Whereas with Kingzone, they would go like, oh no, I can 1v1 you. I'm you know, I'm freaking Peanut or like I'm Gorilla or whatever. I don't care. Let's go. And then you lose those 1v1s, so you lose those mini skirmishes because Vietnam just produces insane junglers essentially. But yeah, we'll talk a bit about EVOS in a second and why their junglers are so
what
insane.
about Fnatic?
Yeah.
Fnatic, okay, so Fnatic is a weird one for me because on one hand, I'm very happy we got through. We put in some amazing performances against Kingzone. I think both games against RNG were winnable, even though they were losses, both of them. So those are some really good positives. But on the negative side, oh my goodness, some of those games. The second game against EVOS was a nightmare. The first game against EVOS was that got my blood boiling, and luckily we won it. But that was a lucky one as well. The second game against Team Liquid was so disrespectful in terms of draft. And I honestly thought, you know, like I was standing there, I was watching the games. I was not even sitting in the stands. I was just standing in front of the venue, like literally 10 meters away from both teams, and I was standing there with my NA journalist Parks, my guy. There's some great pictures of that, and we were just watching the games. Shout out to him. And we were watching the game, and a dead set was like, I don't think Fnatic will win this tiebreaker because they were so on tilt, and Team Liquid looked so on point that day. I was like, we're just gonna lose it. It's just gonna end here. Luckily, we got through. Luckily, that final game, Fnatic finally showed up. Reckless finally showed up. I'm gonna talk about him in a second. I was so dead set. Like in my mind, I had already kind of prepared what I was gonna say in this podcast, and I was gonna go all in. I was gonna say like, hey, if I want a big time player to not show up in those important matches, I watch Mesut fucking Özil play for Arsenal Football Club, not Reckless for Fnatic. What is going on here? Shout out to all the people that get that reference, blood. I was turning into Arsenal fan TV. But yeah, Reckless, MVP. You know, I was praising him all day long on the last podcast, and all of a sudden, he felt non-existent in the majority of Fnatic games. And luckily, Caps putting in the best performance of his life, Broxa being really solid, Repo having on and off games, but sometimes being really good as well. And that kind of carried Fnatic over the line, over the edge. But that was a really tough grind. And yeah, I really hope we will see the better of Fnatic against RNG. But given the RNG game so far, I'm not so sure. So yeah, Cap's insane. That's all I have to say.
Yeah. I was incredibly impressed with Caps. It's something about EU mid laners, right? But don't worry, you aren't gonna have them for summer. So
please not him as well.
No. Maybe summer. We'll take them next.
Maybe
year,
split. Yeah, next 2019.
But he is. I actually never knew how good Caps was. Everyone was hyping this guy, and whenever I would see his games, I wasn't that impressed. You know, his the EU LCS like finals, I wasn't impressed by him. I know he kind of shit on Perks, but I attributed that more to Perks playing bad.
Okay.
And then same with Chizuke. I especially attributed that to Chizuke playing very bad. And that might have been because of rookie nerves or whatnot. I'm not sure. But it seemed like Caps was mechanically good, but I didn't expect him to be this mechanically good. So blew my mind. He definitely is a good representative for EU mid laners. But yeah, I agree with your point in that Reckless didn't seem that impressive, especially against a legendary player like Uzi, for instance. It seemed like whenever he faced against Uzi, it was just, he was paralyzed, like as if he couldn't do anything. And that seems incredibly daunting, I guess, when looking towards Fnatic for the future, whenever they face someone with, you know, a renowned capability like Uzi, or like a Faker. So it seems like he was incredibly on the back burner, which is not Fnatic's style at all. So that was strange.
Yeah, if I can add to that, again, I was really impressed with Caps. To be honest, I didn't have a lot of info about Caps and first podcast because I don't catch up with EVOS as much as LCK, so to speak. But watching Caps play in this tournament, I'm like, wow, who is this goddamn mid laner? His Yasuo. And unlike Reckless, one of the things that I really liked Caps doing was he didn't flinch when he was going against some of the top mid laners, such as, you know, BDD. But yeah, just really impressed by Caps, and you guys already covered like how amazing the Caps and EU mid laners in general are. And yeah, Broxah really stable. You know, love his like smite and.
Yes, a shout out to fucking Broxah. Like seriously, I think Broxah is actually the unsung hero of Fnatic right now.
I agree.
Broxah is, I think this is some of the best play that I've seen from like an EU jungler. Not to shit on EU junglers or anything, but it's just still very impressive how he's actually able to track the enemy jungler, and he's also able to deal with this pressure, this meta of junglers having skirmishes constantly, even against other junglers. And not only that, but him being able to coordinate with the pressure that is generated from Caps too. I think that's incredibly impressive. And it seems like Broxah is very cerebral in terms of how to use his jungle pressure to affect any of the lanes at any given circumstance. So it's I would say he's just under Caps in terms of performing on Fnatic, and why Fnatic have actually won the entire game, or at least got into semifinals.
Yeah, so. And like talking to the players, they all agree. You know, I did an interview with Wipo, and he said the same thing. You know, we are basically getting carried by Caps and Broxah right now. It's all about them. Bot lane needs to step up. I need to step up big time. And that's exactly how the team views it. Broxah is a huge part of Fnatic's early game as well. Like all the first 10 minutes of the game are essentially dictated by him usually. And I really loved his trundle. It's really good. Even though I sometimes wonder whether it's worth the first pick when they have it. It's he usually really performed on it. Seeing him on Graves and like those kind of really aggressive junglers, I wasn't so sure. I think he needs a bit of tankiness on his side to actually be to win stuff. But yeah, Caps, I mean, I mentioned this in the last episode, you know, like I have all my notes here. He's insanely hard to pressure. He has very high kill potential, which he proved, and he's pretty much unbannable right now as well. Like you take away his Yasuo, he goes Aurelion Sol or Talia or like anything that can kill, anything that can murder, and he gets those kills. And it's so nice to see that Caps finally gets the recognition, because he always had the potential and everyone kind of really knew that, but Perkz was just superior in so many ways.
Yeah.
But yeah, him playing the enemy Yasuo in your rank games was such a joy to watch. And yeah, Broxah really played solid. I think I need to give a certain shout out to Bwipo though. Like, given that he is a rookie and given that he has to go up against the best top laners in the world, even though he didn't perform as insane as some people would want him to, you know, the one time he got to play Camille, getting that Zoe, spicy play, you know, like when Zoe ulted and he just hook shots the Zoe ult, it's like, that is what I
pretty
wanted
dope.
to see. That is exactly what he was technically brought on for, and I think his tank play was solid as well. I'm wondering whether we'll see SOAS in the playoffs. He kind of hinted at that when I interviewed him, that we might see SOAS in playoffs. But yeah.
Ooh.
And
Other than that, though, like Fnatic got really outplayed when they didn't get any advantages at 20 minutes, which is what I said last time as well. They need those early game advantages. They need those early dragons. They need those like first early kills. Otherwise, man, late game Fnatic, unless they're really ahead, don't look so good, and they don't know how to play from behind whatsoever, and that's worrying.
and that
Yeah.
Ashley?
yeah and that being
Yeah,
said,
go
I
ahead.
think if Fnatic could improve their game in one way, they really need to focus on the early game, like Darius has just said. And in order for Fnatic to do that, I'm making a lot of assumptions here, but Reckless might be the key. Reckless still prioritizes Sivir a lot, and she is technically known as the champion. Hey, kind of survives through the early and mid game, and you can completely carry the late game with the team fights. That kind of shows what kind of mentality that Reckless is still playing against. We all made a joke about Reckless's final game against Team Liquid, where everyone was, oh, look, he can finally auto attack.
I knew the game was over when he started hitting champions. That's Reckless's performance in a nutshell. Yeah.
So, but he's been a little bit too passive in the lane, and some of his positioning has been quite questionable. And because Fnatic has been such a Reckless heavy team, the way that Reckless plays almost seems to determine Fnatic's speed of the game, like the playstyle of the entire game. So if Reckless maybe prioritizes on a champion that is stronger than early game or has a better snowball, and the team plays around it, I think that's gonna be a big boost on Fnatic current strength. Yeah.
Isento?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm just kind of impressed overall by Fnatic, and like you were saying with Bwipo, it's impressive in its own right that he's able to at least somewhat hold his own in the top lane. He hasn't necessarily had like the outstanding performance of Caps or Broxa, if you're actually paying attention to jungle routes and vision and everything, which is a little bit harder to notice, because Caps is taking center stage, like solo killing people and stuff. But yeah, Bwipo for his own merit, he's definitely holding his own in the top lane against some legendary players, which is incredibly impressive. And in the first podcast, I did say that this would be their weakness, right? You're bringing in this rookie to face against fucking Khan, like, nah, ain't gonna happen.
And what happened?
But then Khan choked. So
yeah, but like, I mean,
I don't know.
Fnatic did exactly what they were supposed to do in that situation. They just consistently pressure top lane. Like Broxa really, really hard focused on that lane. I mean, in the game against Team Liquid, he literally got like 5 ganks within 15 minutes.
It was that tiebreaker game was nuts. It was both junglers basically focusing the top lane, and it was who could affect the top lane the most. And the decision was decided by Caps because of his roams, and that ended up giving Bwipo a CS lead, and so they snowballed kind of off of that pressure, along with Caps going bot lane too. But it's their whole team dynamic is quite good, and I'm not expecting them to win against RNG and by any means at all. But for them to at least best Team Liquid, I was pretty impressed. Although that's not to say that they haven't dropped games this tournament that looked very unimpressive, and honestly, both teams from NA and EU should be worried about how they're going to approach the global meta and worlds coming into this year.
Yeah, I mean, Fnatic, yeah, we've talked a lot about the positives, but some of the negatives. The fact that Reckless performs like this in crucial games is worrying. Like, let's just say it is. Like, Repo has an excuse. He's a rookie, right? That's just how it is. But like, seeing Healy to an extent, but mostly Reckless not play on anywhere near the level that we are used to in Europe, you know. I looked back at the MVP votings, and literally 3 people out of the 56 people that voted for MVPs didn't vote for Reckless. They voted for Caps, which in hindsight was a fantastic decision. Shout out to Veteran from H2K. He's a really good coach and really knows his stuff. He predicted smart guy. But everyone else, myself included, all voted for Reckless. Like, it was a 94% MVP vote, which was insane. But Reckless being the worrying member of Fnatic, we've not had that really ever. And I'm gonna defend him in the way that I say he got screwed over by draft multiple times. Again, picking that Jhin was a weird decision. I don't get it. Picking the Sivir, you already have Rakan. Why not just pick up Xayah? I don't know. But given that they have kind of fixed that in the last game against Team Liquid, going with the Xayah Rakan combination, I really hope that they've fixed that issue of saying, okay, we can't just scale until 40 minutes because we're gonna get screwed over then. We will pick a lane bully or like just a good freaking lane, and then just try to snowball off that and just try to win against RNG that way.
Yeah,
Ashley?
Really quick question.
Yeah.
I don't have any notes on this, and I don't have any post-match stuff either, but what's Reckless's priority on Israel like? Has he ever...
they basically always ban it away.
They always ban it away. So
yeah.
This is another thing that I've noticed. So Israel, especially with the double tier meta that's been quite hard in this MSI, Israel has been a very contested pick, especially around RNG and Kingzone. I think part of the reason that Kingzone performed so well on day one was they were allowed to take Israel away on both games. So that's another thing that Fnatic may have to look at. EU always has been, hey, I'm a player, I play, there is a certain type of champions that I play, which may be different from the meta, but is Reckless not being able to, this is an assumption, Reckless maybe not being that confident in Israel in the double tier playstyle and having to bend it away.
They played it, I believe, at least one time, if not twice, and it didn't go well. So since then, they've essentially banned it away because they see the strength of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, also something that was worrying for me, Varus wasn't even like on the paper whatsoever, which I think in multiple occasions would have been a fine pick, but they didn't go for it. Jhin being picked up twice or 3 times was, I don't get it whatsoever. I think there are certain situations where Jhin is good, but like with so much pressure being exerted from jungle and top lane right now, with so many divers like Vladimir and Camille being picked up and stuff like that, I really don't think there's much of a place for Jhin. Even like Ornn, like it's so hard to pull off a good Jhin, and we've seen that multiple times not working out. So I don't know why they prioritized it so much. And yeah, then it was just a Sivir show from there. Tristana was usually banned, which makes sense, you know. But like, what is up with this champion pool? They let Kai'Sa slide multiple times, and I'm like, Kai'Sa is literally the best champion, or like the best AD in my opinion right now. And we've seen her pop off so multiple times, and then they let it slip against RNG, and they just auto lose because Uzi gets Kai'Sa, and that's GG from there. So I hope that Reckless will will be able to play some Kai'Sa or Xayah, and just some champions that aren't supposed to scale until 50 minutes, because you can't pull that stuff against the world's best teams.
And not in this meta.
Yeah, well, in speaking of champion pools, I have noticed that Team Liquid don't like Xayah. They don't like the champion, and not only that, but Olay doesn't necessarily look that great on Rakan as well. So now you have this double like negative, I guess, towards this team in the draft phase. And if you look back at Spring Split and how Team Liquid have performed, and especially with Clutch Gaming. Clutch Gaming, they're renowned for their Xayah Rakan bot lane, because Apollo and Hakuho both like to use lane dominant champions, and that's how they kind of get ahead. And with Team Liquid, they don't seem to deal well with this type of lane dominant pressure. Besides maybe the Jhin pick is probably the exception, because Doublelift is quite good on Jhin. But this seems to be kind of a weakness, especially within MSI, when looking at, like you said, an Ornn pick, for instance, is very difficult to have Jhin as like a ADC. And then combine that with not being able to run Xayah, which then means that you have to do something with this Rakan. And, which Rakan is good by himself, so that's not that big of a worry. But when it comes to Olay, I don't particularly see him as a Rakan player. So it just kind of fucks you all in draft, and you don't really know what to do when you're drafting for Team Liquid.
But at least
if you're the coach,
at least Doublelift still put up stuff like Caitlyn and like Kokma, and he put in really good performances in that as well. And like we've legit seen such a small champion pool from Reckless that it's again just a bit worrying, especially because the few champions that he does play they just don't really fit right now, the meta, I feel like. And that's something that they really need to get. We need to fix against RNG. Speaking of RNG, beautiful transition. Thank you very much. We're gonna talk a bit about RNG's performance, because obviously they placed first in the MSI groups. I think they were very solid most of the time, and I think Uzi is pretty much the best player in the tournament so far. Do you guys agree?
Best player in the world.
Best player in the world. Yeah, it's pretty much the same.
Go. I do think.
Yeah,
Go.
Well, Uzi has played phenomenal this tournament. I mean, I don't think there's a person or an analyst that would say that Uzi didn't play up to snuff for this entire tournament. He played like an absolute monster. And RNG, they did have a bad bot lane phase only in their game against TL, I would say, on day 3, with Ming getting caught out with from Morgana bindings the entire game. But otherwise, Uzi has been playing phenomenally. MLXG, he plays very aggressive, which is nice for the most part. Besides some particular instances and stuff. So it's a little bit of a coin flip, but at least you know what you're getting when you put in MLXG, right? He's just this super forward aggression, and that kind of allows Uzi to reign free. And there was some crazy stat in the beginning of the tournament to where Uzi was getting like 14 or 15 CS per minute.
Even at before 10 minutes, like he was topping those charts even before 10 minutes. It's like when they played against Fnatic, Uzi was up by 50 CS at like 10 minutes. What the hell? How?
Yeah, like logically, how does that even is there enough creeps on the entire map?
I genuinely feel sometimes as if like Riot just implement more creeps specifically only for Uzi, because like I can't think of so many ways to get that many creeps. And I interviewed him about this, and he was like, yeah, well, I mean, we kind of play around that way, so like I get to catch a lot of the waves, and like sometimes I get to rotate, so like I basically get all the farm. But doing it even like just when you're 2-on-2 in the bot lane and still getting all that CS, even though you like have enemy junglers that want to go on you, and then they try to dive you and you just get a double kill because you're freaking Uzi. It's like insane. The guy's absolutely insane.
It's pretty impressive, yeah.
It's so amazing, and it just puts a lot of pressure into the enemy team, because even when they draft and give a winning lane to our bot lane, Uzi and Ming just completely flips around, because I know that Uzi is literally the best player out of MSI at the moment, and let's give him some credit, but Ming has also been playing spectacularly. I just gotta say, it's not like Ming is just on the bus. Ming has been supporting Uzi like crazy, and that bot lane, even if you sacrifice a lot of draft and give my team a losing lane, Uzi and Ming just flips it around. And we all know what happens when we give Uzi things like Kai'Sa, and things just go crazy. So it's like a lose-lose situation. Hey, we need to ban a lot of things just to try to contain Uzi, and even when we give our bot lane the winning lane, we kind of assume that Uzi's gonna step over it anyway. And he's good in the early lane, like you guys mentioned. You know, his CS is spectacular, and in the late game, he has this instinct where he just goes in and doesn't die on Kog'Maw, and I don't know how he does that. Yeah. He's just a mad dog. Like, I will say, it's a bit of a talent, isn't it? Yeah. I don't know how to explain it. Yeah.
He's a one of a kind player for sure. Like when we say like when we talk about like one day we'll reflect about the grades of like the first League of Legends area, or like the first 8 seasons. I think like, you know, he really is up there with the likes of Faker, and pretty much I think like he's just absolutely insane. That said though, Izento, you mentioned how you were like pretty okay with MLXG. I actually think MLXG was one of the reasons why RNG dropped some games, and like in general could have dropped even more, because, you know, the Kingzone game was, well, it could have been really lost if it weren't for Uzi and stuff, and the rest of his squad, because like he just feels too coin flippy for that squad. And when they subbed in Karsa against Flash Wolves, I mean, on one hand it was kind of like the mental thing, you know, putting Karsa against his own teammates and stuff. But I think Karsa has, from like even the regular split, reflecting some of the VODs there, Karsa is actually super solid. And I expect, or like I would hope, that RNG would swap in Karsa for their sakes. Even though for my personal thing, I think MLXG is gonna go out jungled by Broxah at this point.
Yeah, I agree with you. As long as you can contain MLXG's early aggression, which sometimes he'll do like these weird level 2 ganks, and he'll just kind of coin flip it, and if you're prepared for that, then there's not really much he can do, right? He gets so far set behind. I mean, you even saw, like I said, in the Kingzone versus RNG game, that he just got set behind so badly. So yeah, MLXG, he is one of those coin flip guys, which is weird seeing that from him. But you know, that's one of the ways that you can punish RNG, and as you said, that probably is their biggest weakness. But at the same time, you know, it's like that double-edged sword, where it's also one of their biggest strengths, because if MLXG is popping off, then Uzi can also go hard in bot lane and have bot lane priority, because at the end of the day, Uzi is always going to mechanically outperform any other bot laner. So he ends up getting these ridiculous trades within the bot lane as far as micro aspect, and also getting CS on top of that. So he's going to contest, you know, every single CS, as people say, and the only reason why he wouldn't do that is because of jungle pressure. And if you have jungle pressure from MLXG, well then, yeah, Uzi's just gonna shit on you. So
okay, so yeah, RNG to me also look like the favorites at this point to win it all, simply because they have the option of subbing in Karsa in case MLXG goes MLXD. So yeah, I think they just look the most solid team, and they have a really good read on the meta as well. That said, yeah, Xiaohu let me, I don't know whether they'll be able to handle you know, the likes of Caps or the likes of Khan if he actually has a good day. That is of course very dependent. But let's talk a bit about Flash Wolves, because they were almost gonna take that first place spot, but at the end of the day they lost the tiebreaker to RNG. They're still second. They're gonna go up against Kingzone, of course. So what are your takes on Flash Wolves' performance, Ashley?
Well, I just think that they have amazing understanding of the meta. They just know how to play the early aggression extremely well. And another thing I've noticed was Flash Wolves is not that tiltable. I remember a few games where Flash Wolves was behind. Was it either against Kingzone or RNG? But they don't really tilt. They try to rotate a few times and, okay, how do we bring this game back? And if you go to the big stage, like some players start to underperform or get the pressure, overcome them. But I think Flash Wolves was one of the teams that where, hey, we're on the big stage and there are fans supporting us, so we'll even play better. I think that's the mindset that Flash Wolves has maybe entered, and yeah, they're not that tilting. They're playing really confidently, but also really intelligently, and they have a really understanding of the meta. But
yeah, I mean, I think Flash Wolves, their jungler is fucking crazy. I mean, Mujin, he seems to invade too pretty heavily, and he kind of goes along with the entire meta that's been set, which is heavy jungle aggression. And not only that, but Maple's Zoe is just people realized it was so nuts that they started banning it later on. And when you get someone who you don't assume is that mechanically gifted, then you begin to wonder if you have to worry about this mid lane threat as well too, because it's not only sword art that you have to worry about in the bot lane as far as engaged supports, which by the way, he is drawing more bans for that as well too, which then frees up his other players and allows them to get their preferential picks. So it becomes this kind of multi-pronged threat when looking at the Flash Wolves, and I think that's why they've been so successful, is because you always have to worry about sword art with his engages, and then you suddenly learn that Maple is a threat as well too, and then you have this constant aggression from their jungler, and it just seems overwhelming at moments, especially when they're all on point. So
I guess
I think Ashley,
just a quick comment is Flash Wolves is almost what the players expect, the fans expected Kingzone Dragon X to be before the start of the MSI. Super aggressive, especially in the early game. All the laners performing above the opponent laner. Really, really great jungler roaming everywhere. So Flash Wolves is what people expected Kingzone to be.
Pretty much. That said, though, I think Flash Wolves, basically they had this really good early start because they were the best prepared, and that's, for example, what Uzi said as well. They he was like, actually Flash Wolves looked like the best team in the tournament so far. That was after day 2, I believe, when I interviewed him. So I think they just got the best read on the meta quickest. They scrimmed, of course, a lot of teams that were in play-ins, and were able to get that advantage off. Because they just had so much more scrim practice, also given that they had to play in the play-ins against Gambit and stuff. So that was definitely helpful, but it's still very impressive to see them go 6-0 after 3 days. Then they still packed those 3 losses, and I think that's kind of when other teams caught on to the meta. They kind of realized, okay, this is what we need to do, and that's how we beat them, and that's kind of how they packed those 3 losses. Still, though, they are a threat. I think every single member of that team is solid. I think Maple is really up there. I think he was like the 2nd best mid laner of the tournament, in my opinion. And like everyone else also kind of ranks like 3rd or 2nd in that whole ranking aspect. And Betty, I think, also needs to get a special shout out, even though he kind of threw the game against Team Liquid. He still had Flash. God damn it, brother Betty. Steve's money is in his wallet right now, but I still think he's put in quite a lot of fantastic performances. His Varus against Fnatic, I believe, was disgustingly good as well. And in general, I feel like he was probably one of the few ADCs that played Varus, but played him so well. Like I think that's definitely a target ban right there. And as you've mentioned, Zento, they all have kind of their target bans that you need to throw against Flash Wolf. So that's going to be a difficult one. I still say that Kingzone is slightly favored, but only slightly. Which, if we would have asked us, 2 weeks ago, who would win in the best of 5 Kingzone or Flash Wolves, that was an easy answer back then. But yeah, Flash Wolves really putting it up, and maybe the Korean killer meme lives on. EVOS. Let's talk about EVOS. They got 2 wins. Oh yeah, Ashley, you still want to add something to Flash Wolves?
Because no one else mentioned it, I just want to give a really, really quick props up to Hanabi. Like, we talked about Muzin a lot, but Hanabi, that guy, man, he's Yasuo top. Yeah, just want to give...
I mean, Hanabi, Hasagi, it's a meme by itself. The jokes
if people haven't kept up to the Twitter after the games, before Hanabi went to top, he was actually a mid laner. And he was a a Zed and Yasuo 2-trick pony. There you go.
Wow, I didn't know that.
There you go.
That's crazy.
That very much fits his style then. Yeah, that's actually pretty beautiful. Yeah, well, another target ban right there, I would guess.
But back to EVOS, yeah.
Yeah, EVOS. So they went, at the end of the day, they went 2-8. They got 1 win against Team Liquid, and that one really disappointing win for me against Fnatic, because that was a crushing game. But that said, though, even though they were looking at the standings by far the worst team, I didn't even feel like they were a bad team. They just had a lot of good showings, and then at the end of the game, they kind of couldn't always finish what they had started. For example, the first game against Fnatic, they had a really good chance to win that game. Luckily for us, that didn't quite work out. And Caps 1v1'd their top laner Stark, and that was really close. Like, if Caps would have lost that 1v1, Fnatic loses that game, and that was super close. It was super on the edge. So I think EVOS, even though they kind of didn't live up to the Gigabyte Marine hype and stuff like that, I think Stark is just like last MSI, such a good top laner. Warzone can do 1,000 push-ups. I don't care. He was still the worst mid laner at MSI. Maybe second worst. I mean, Pobalter was pretty bad. But he disappointed me a lot. What do you guys think about that?
Pretty much gonna agree with you in terms of, so they were playing some amazing early games, but given that, it looked like their main shot calling or maybe macro, especially towards the main game, late game, wasn't that clean. They sometimes tend to cling on to the objectives a bit too hard when they should be maybe letting go. I've seen their ADC make some interesting positioning decision a few times, but given that...
That's a very nice way of putting it.
I'm a nice person.
Capital INT.
Given that, and especially given that this is first time Vietnam is starting out as a region in an international stage, I would say that EVOS has overperformed against everyone's expectations. Yeah. How about you, Zento?
Yeah, I'd agree. They overperformed in the sense that no one expected them to really even be able to be mechanically good enough in order to survive, right? Because whenever you think of a wildcard region, it's that they don't have the macro, definitely, but it's also they don't have the micro in terms of being able to understand their champion's limits, or being able to understand the limits of who they're facing against as well too in champion matchups. So it's pretty impressive to see them still being able to get early leads against some of these teams, like Team Liquid or Fnatic. So it's, in that instance, it's impressive. But yeah, as you guys had said, towards the mid or late game aspects, they have problems with objective control. They also had problems with vision control too, even in the early game, especially when their jungler was set behind. And then they also had weird decisions around Baron. I have no clue what they're doing, but their game against Team Liquid, they just suddenly did Baron for some reason, and then Xmithy flashes over the wall and just smites it, and
Pipelish.
It wasn't even the hardest steal, like, right? It was actually,
No,
it was
yeah.
manageable because there was no real vision and there was no real way to defend it. It's like, really, you want to do this? I don't know. That said, though, I think you're not necessarily wrong, but like that said, Vietnam has always been known as like this region that has insane talents when it comes to pure mechanical skill. They just have no real macro understanding. And the interesting thing is that like Levi, who's of course now in NA, who's the star player of Gigabyte Marines last year, he also said that like in high elo in Vietnam, they don't even have a concept of macro. It's like literally even on the highest of Challenger, it's all about mechanics, which is partially why they produce such aggressive and mechanically proud junglers. And in this case, Jin, I think, still took the flag and still showed why Vietnam is known for these kinds of players. But at the end of the day, when you go up against the best of the best, that's just not gonna cut it, right? So I mean, I'm still kind of surprised that they were able to 3-1 Supermassive, because I thought like Supermassive should have been the favorites and like they should have been the ones that out macro them and stuff. But
definitely.
That's kind of how it goes. So yeah, EVOS, a lot of individual talent, but no real team synergy, I guess.
Supermassive tilted so hard on that BO5, and I was
you could just see it in their
as
play.
a GBM fan. I was tilted, but yeah, that's another story.
Oh yeah, I forgot. Yeah, GBM. That was.
Oh, they hurt.
Yeah, that was sad to see.
It was pretty rough, yeah. And especially like Zeitnote is such a good ADC usually, and then that just didn't work out. Yeah, I don't know. Well, okay. I think that has covered all the teams that participated in groups. Now I think we've already hinted at this a couple of times, but it's time for our top 3 overperformers / best performers. So it's like a mix of both, and flop 3 underperformers / worst players of the tournament. So there might be some players that, even though they technically weren't the worst players or the best players, given the expectations, they either exceeded them or just didn't reach them whatsoever. So that's my reasoning for placing them in certain positions. If you disagree with them, of course, write down your top 3 and flop 3 in the comments below. It's a smart thing to do.
Shout out.
And we'll discuss that. But I'm just going to start off with my top 3. In third place, I think I have Prey, because Prey definitely for me was the best member of Kingzone, always pulling his weight with very little resources, very good player. His Ezreal is insane, ban it away or you'll get screwed up. Prey is just really, really solid. In second place, I have Caps, because Caps for me right now is contending for best mid in the world. I'm just gonna say it. I know it's maybe biased. I don't care. I think his play was absolutely insane. It was so top notch. It's like it's everything you want in a mid laner in this meta, at least. And as number 1, I have Uzi, because Uzi is just a god. It's literally the best player in the world. If you disagree with that, just delete your comment. Zento, what are your top 3?
So my top 2 are the same as yours, but I gotta rep my boy Broxa for the 3rd slot. I don't know. I think he is very underappreciated in Fnatic. He is a really intelligent jungler, and what I see from him is a similar style of intelligence from Xmithie. So that's kind of saying a lot in terms of that he's at that kind of a level yet already, and not nearly as experienced. So that's not to say that he is as intelligent as Xmithie. I think Xmithie, he makes very calculative decisions based upon everything on the map, and he knows exactly where to be at the correct times. And Broxa, I don't think he's quite there yet, but just in terms of his routing and his vision control, especially with coordinating with Caps, particularly, and that's, I think, where Fnatic has outshined most other teams in a sense, is their jungle mid synergy is just really on point. So that's why I have to give the 3rd place to Broxa. But yeah, obviously Caps, super going ham, you know, doesn't give a shit about, you know, Zhao Hu or whoever the fuck your name is. And then Uzi, yeah, he's the mad dog.
Ashley, what about your top 3 picks?
I guess everyone just has to go to Matt with Uzi. So he's in such a different tier with every other AZCs out from the performance we've seen so far. You know, in terms of the laning phase, in terms of the team fights, his mad positioning, and the way he's able to put on deals into the enemy ranks. Yeah, gotta give props to Caps. Again, he has everything. Good laning phase, amazing champion pool. Doesn't give a fuck about like who's he's laning against, like, which is really important.
First time that Ashley has sworn.
Oh really? You actually,
is that?
Is that?
Do we need some party poppers right now?
We need like a counter. Like Zentos is at 28, mine is at like 3, and Ashley's at 1.
Oh really? Okay, cool. I guess it's a good thing. I don't know.
Yay!
Caps is so good, he made Ashley swear.
Okay, you can
That's
quote
crazy.
me on
That's going in the headline.
Like, I'm just gonna be really emotional, and it's all about hype, but I really just enjoyed watching Mujin play. I have a soft spot for aggressive, clean junglers, and Mujin was right there with his great performance, and especially because, well, he's not really a rookie because he just came out of Red Bulls, but I think that's his...
It's EU Challenger. I mean, he's technically EU talent, but yeah, it's pretty... I mean,
he's Korean. He's Korean.
EU talent. It's like Coach AJ. NA talent. NA talent.
NA talent forever.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay. Yeah. Mujin, I like that. I like that.
I just really enjoyed watching him. That's my reason why I will pick him. Yeah, and seeing that from a rookie player.
For sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so the mic is going to stay with you right there as well. What are your flop 3 from 3rd to 1st?
Oh,
oof.
It pains me to say Khan.
as number 1 or number 3? That's the question here.
Okay, so I'm not gonna number them because that's gonna hurt me a bit too much.
She knows the truth.
They're all on equal footing.
Can't, like, even on whether on tanks or carries, he hasn't shown that old dominance that he has displayed in the LCK stage, and I'm not exactly sure what's going on there. Maybe it's the confidence issue. This is his second.
Yeah, maybe it is the confidence issue.
In the way that it's overconfidence, not like lack of confidence with, for example, Team Liquid members, but overconfidence.
Possibly.
Well, I don't want to keep harping on that aspect of like panic attack or anything, but maybe he is overconfident.
I don't know.
You know how some people they end up acting overconfident, but really it's because they are underconfident, and so like that's their coping mechanism or something. So maybe in the sense of Khan, that is the way that he operates.
I'm just gonna say this, like, because obviously I get to hang around in the backstage area a lot, and like I get to see players, and sometimes very emotionally and stuff like that. He always looked very calm and collected even after losses. Not as much as, say, other people. For example, Peanut just legit doesn't look phased even after losses, which was really surprising. Gorilla looked pretty calm as well, Prey as well. But yeah, Khan looked fine. So, yeah. Well, let's not harp on Karn too much. Let's give him some slack. What are your other 2 picks? Because I think we're going to have some...
I'm just talking about his performance, and not even as a LCK fan, but just as a League of Legends viewer. I really hope that Khan steps up in the semi-finals, because we all enjoyed watching him perform, and especially in so many matches, and I just want to be pampered with those performances by Khan again. So I really hope he steps up again. Maybe he has to go back to almost try a conflict pick like Jace, even though that's completely off meta. I'm not sure, but we'll see what happens. Yeah. I have to say Reckless. I'm sorry, Darius, but because we always compare, like again with Khan, going into MSI, he had the whole speech about all the top laners in the world bow down to me, and because of that, everyone is a bit more critical about his performance. And same with Reckless. Straight after EOLCS, he went to Korea, and everyone was talking about, wow, Reckless is such a hard worker. Right after winning the MVP of the split, he was in 25th place in the Korean solo queue after such a short amount of time, and we were like, wow, what is he gonna show in MSI? And it almost looked like Reckless was held back during the entirety of the group stages, shown by his champions and shown by his performance, especially on Uzi, and that's going to be a big issue in semi-finals, the fact that he almost seemed to having a bit of a panic attack against laning against Uzi. So again, I hope that Reckless steps up, because I really enjoyed watching EOLCS finals, and it's always a treat to see a good player in their top performance, so hope he steps up. Finally, I'm deciding between...
It sounds like you're going from third to first. I'm just saying. I'm just pointing that out there.
No, it's from first to third.
Like,
okay.
I was gonna go with one of the Team Liquid players, but because I'm representing LCK at the moment, I'm actually gonna go with Gorilla. I'm just being quite.
Okay.
I'm just being a bit more harsher on my home team, so to speak.
Yeah.
He's always been the stable rock that Kingzone played their dominance upon, but a lot of his players have been quite questionable, and I wonder whether it's tilting. I wonder if it's an overconfidence thing, but yeah, we'll see. Again, we'll see what happens. But if I had to pick the top, like, underperforming or players, they'll be my top stream. Yeah.
Izendo, what about you?
Really, I'm having difficulty with the third one, because I don't think there were a whole lot of terrible players at this tournament. I mean, there were like 2 outstanding ones, but
Same here.
As far as the third one, it sounds like, because we have to do this top 3, then therefore this third player is like very bad, and then it goes like extremely bad, and then the top guy is just like, yeah, like, you should not play League of Legends, like which is not
what we're
all,
saying.
but,
like, and of course, underperforming is a thing. So like Khan again. Khan wasn't the worst. Khan wasn't even the worst top laner, arguably. He was pretty low, but like, it's just this expectation of him. All top laners bow down to me, and then he's like, eh.
Yeah, I would say for, I don't know, for third, yeah, I guess I could go with Reckless. I was expecting this legendary ADC, to pop off, to lead his team, and then you suddenly just have Caps turning up, and them relying heavily on Caps in order to win a lot of these games. And it becomes the circumstance to where you can't even rely on your bot lane to do well. And it's like a one-man show in that instance, in order to be able to get carried and to go on to the next stage. So props to I guess Caps and Broxa in terms of doing well, but as far as like underperformers and my expectations, I rate Reckless a little bit higher, but then again, I've never thought that Reckless is this magnificent player that everyone else seems to like put him on a pedestal. I don't think he's a phenomenal player. I always have thought he's like this overly greedy player, but he doesn't show the, I guess, results of being this overly greedy player. So he doesn't necessarily have like these hard carry performances that I expect from someone who gets this heavy investment of resources. So within this tournament, I wasn't incredibly impressed by him, but that's by no means to say that he did super bad, you know. And then there is Khan.
So he's your number two.
Yeah, Khan's my number two. You expect this guy to be this mechanical fucking god that just destroys the enemy top laner, right? That just gives this insurmountable pressure to where you have to deal with him. And that's how Kingzone functions as a team. You have to go deal with Khan, and he ends up 1v2ing pressure, and then you have Prey and Gorilla being able to scale up and also win their matchup too, because there's so much jungle attention top lane because you have to deal with Khan. But it hasn't worked in this tournament. There is no pressure from Khan. He's non-existent. He's a non-factor. And when that happens, it seems like Kingzone have crumbled. And so when looking at the whole dichotomy of Kingzone, it's a really big letdown. And I'm completely unimpressed by Khan, especially going against the likes of, Weibo, for instance. We had said, like, oh, Weibo's going to get smashed.
You said that. I said...
But, that's what you expect when you hear Khan's name. So, yeah, just incredibly unimpressed by him. I hope he steps up within semifinals. And then there is Pobelter.
Drum roll!
Pobelter has done so fucking bad this tournament. And this may be attributed to the bot lane doing bad in the beginning, but even still, it's that Team Liquid aren't able to even generate pressure from the mid lane at all. Like, he just exerts no pressure in the mid lane, and then that allows the enemy mid laner to roam, and then he has to respond constantly. And so you see this constant response from Pobelter rather than proactive plays, which we were used to seeing within the spring split. So Pobelter has been like a really big letdown. I think he was the worst performing member of Team Liquid. Yeah, by far. Okay. Because I don't think Ole did that bad towards the latter half of the days. But that's also not to say that Ole performed well. But I think the whole linchpin of Team Liquid had been reliant upon Pobelter to at least do more than a kind of adequate job that he was used to playing within like a lineup such as CLG or something. So yeah, Pobelter completely let down. Very bad tournament for him this time, and it just goes to show that when he's in a domestic league, it's not so bad. There's all he has to deal with is Jensen and Bjergsen as far as competition. But then other than that, no other mid laner is going to be able to pressure him inside the 1v1 or the 2v2 in terms of jungle and mid laner 2v2 matchup. So yeah, he's very bad outside of the domestic league. That's really it.
Wow, yeah, this is gonna be a rough watch in case Steve tunes in again, as he's done last time.
Yeah,
Shout out to him.
Steve, don't watch this one.
Yeah, okay, so for my flop 3, the third one was really hard to decide for me as well. I was like jumping. Originally, I actually wanted to put MLXG because I genuinely thought they should just sub in Karsa because MLXG also had like this state of being like this amazing, insane jungler when he came into the tournament, and people were like, "Why even bring Karsa as a sub? Like, let me in the top lane is the bigger question mark than MLXG." Okay. Yeah, and like MLXG was praised to no end together with Uzi, and yeah, he really didn't show up. But that said, yeah, Reckless for me, I have to be kind of like a bit more biased here as well, because like Reckless is just our European wonder boy. It's like what Uzi is to China is Reckless to Europe. It's just, we expect a lot of him, and he's shown us so many times how amazing he can be. But this tournament so far, even though I agree that he got screwed over by draft multiple times, he also gets to say what he kind of wants to play, you know, saying, hey, I want to play Sivir instead of Xayah into Team Liquid. That's on you, mate. Like that you gotta take that L for me, in my opinion. And like saying, hey, I don't play Varus, or I don't play certain champions. I think that is not really what we want to hear from our best player in the entire region. So again, I don't like, he almost got a pentacle, so you can argue, hey, he had some really amazing games, and he did. His Tristana against Kingzone was really good. That last team fight, you know, Caps died, but he really put out the damages, jumping around, getting a triple kill. He was crucial in that moment as well, getting an inhib before. He's had his good games, but too many times when Fnatic were losing, he looked like not the kind of player that was able to carry from behind, that was able to get picks or like put in a wonder performance. So have to say, yeah, Reckless is my number 3 pick at the end of the day as well. Number 2 for me, Pobelter. Yep, really disappointing. I think a lot of problems of Team Liquid also stem from the fact that, you know, Pobelter is unable to play a lot of meta champions right now, which again, I mean, it's your job to play the game. I think that's not a good sign whatsoever. You get rid of his Malzahar and you have a problem as Team Liquid all of a sudden. Not a good showing whatsoever. That Yasuo was not promising at all. And his karma was just average. His karma was just straight up average. And then as number 1, I have Khan as well. I'm sorry to say, but Khan, again, like, you can't go around and say all top laners in the world bow down to me and then play like that. Like, if they would have had like a top laner, like even freaking Soas in his prime subbing in for Khan, I think Kingzone would have like taken number 1 spot. I think he was like the main reason why they dropped several games, including the ones against Fnatic. And yeah, Khan just straight up disappointing all the way through, and he really needs to watch his mouth next time around. I guess next time Worlds comes around, don't say stuff like that, because that's just only gonna backfire. Ashley,
I'm not actually that angry at Khan for saying that, because I'm just glad of Khan's character as a trash talker. Like, this is kind of going off tangent. Like,
true.
That kind of trash talk always brings a bit more fun into like the audience, and especially with LCK, where everyone is, my performance was bad. Like, you know, I will try harder next time. Thanks, fan, for supporting me. And
I mean, I think Darius can appreciate the trash talk.
I do.
You know,
so good on him. Like, the tournament hasn't gone as well for Kingzone about his Khan. You know, I'm disappointed as an LCK fan, but nothing against Khan, and I just hope that, you know, he plays a better game on the best of 5. That's all. That's the first one, and
that's fair.
Yeah, not angry at Khan at all. Like, for making this statement, we need more things like that in LCK, especially in LCK.
Actually, it's LCK does definitely need more trash talk. Holy shit!
Yeah.
The amount of lightheartedness that I see from the players is just like, damn, dude, like, stop with the PC shit and just, you know, like,
stop being
shit
so nice
on some kids.
Yeah. I will agree with you there. I take that back, actually. I even though I still think it's a bit cocky to say something like that and then perform like that. I still agree in heart that saying it before the tournament is a good thing. It creates hype. It creates now stuff for us to talk about. So I agree.
Well, see, you get to trash talk him now because he said that.
True. Like I remember before the game, before the ULCS finals, of course, Soaz had broken his arm or broken his hand, and there was an interview with both Bwipo and Wonder, top laner of G2, about the upcoming finals. And Wonder, dead set, said, "I will make Bwipo wish he broke his arm instead of Soaz." And that,
yeah, I remember that.
Ooh, that was brutal. That was straight out of WWE. It was fire. It was amazing. So yeah, okay, I'll take it. I'll take the trash talk. I'll take back the criticism in that area, but still Khan very disappointing. Still, predictions for Paris. I'm just gonna keep it short. Kingzone beat Flash Wolves 3-1. RNG is gonna lose to Fnatic 2-3 because hey, I gotta rep my boys. Izento, what are your scores?
I'm actually saying that the Fnatic versus RNG is actually gonna be closer than people think. So yeah, I will give 3-2 to RNG though. And then Kingzone, yeah, I think it's going to be a 3-1, and I predict Kingzone to actually win the entire tournament.
Still,
like, okay. Yeah, still because best of 5, you cannot fuck with Kingzone. Sorry, but their draft is so immaculate when it comes to this team that they have such an extensive champion pool that you can't touch that. And then if it goes down to the showing that a lot of people are going to expect, which is RNG versus Kingzone, I still think that Kingzone kind of match up decently against RNG. And with, as you said before previously, that MLXD might show up, then, it's going to be game over.
You just sub in Karsa, though. You just sub in Karsa.
Who knows if that'll happen, but yeah, I think Kingzone's actually going to take it all.
Ashley?
So. Okay. RNG versus Fnatic, I'll start with the easy one. I'm sorry. Oh, so sorry. I feel bad.
Ouch! Ouch! Wow.
Okay.
Okay. I see where this is going. All right.
Okay. Statistically, according to the betting platforms or whatever.
Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay.
I think.
So next episode we'll have Emily Rand instead of Ashley talking about Korea.
I think RNG is going to take it. Fnatic is gonna put up a decent fight, but based on the performance that RNG has shown, they're just gonna take it. Probably 3-1 or 3-2. Kingdom versus Flash Wolves. It's a really interesting one. I think Kingzone will take it, and probably on Street 2 it will have to be a very, very... It will either be Street 2 Kingzone win or 3-0 Flash Wolves win. I think it's gonna go.
Okay.
I think it's gonna go either of those two.
Okay,
ways.
I like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And for the finals, do I have to decide? I think it's so close at this point. My brain actually says RNG win, but because I'm an LCK representative, I'll just go with Kingzone, and you guys can blame me if things go the other way. But yeah.
I mean, this kind of brings me to just the wrap up of the hot takes that are inevitably going to come. And I didn't give my prediction for the finals game.
That's right.
And here it comes. Cheating. Even if it's a good transition, but even if Fnatic lose and RNG takes it, either way, I think the winner of RNG versus Fnatic will win the tournament. Because if Fnatic are able to show up, if they are able to truly show what they're made of, if they are going to go full potential like they've gone against Kingzone, like they've shown against Team Liquid, even to an extent as they've shown against RNG, to an extent at least, I think they will be able to take it, even in the best of 5 scenario, because I actually think they are a lot better in the best of 5 than in the best of 1. So yeah,
Wow,
my
that's-
hot take is Kingzone is not gonna make it. Kingzone is gonna lose. They may make the finals, but they're not gonna win the entire thing. It's either gonna be RNG or Fnatic. That's gonna be my hot take.
Were you saying something? Were you...
Shut up, Monte Cristo. Never bet against Korea. Well, I'm betting against Korea.
Like,
If there's gonna be a
That's-
time that Korea loses, it's gonna be this one. Like
Yeah, that's
we've
true.
seen all the legacies end. We've seen RNG finally get their first Uzi getting his first title. I apologize. SKT dropping down, G2 dropping down, TSM dropping down. It's the year of the upsets. Kingzone were third of the group for a reason. They're not gonna make it.
the only reason I'm predicting.
Oh man.
The only reason. Okay, I said that Fnatic losing is the easiest one because the other games are so close that I'm not even sure how to predict it. The only reason me and probably Izento is giving Kingzone more favor is because it's BO5, and Korean teams have traditionally performed much stronger on BO5. Given that, I guess my hot take will have to be Kingzone taking the cup, and at this point, I think it's actually a hot take based on how.
Okay.
Yeah, so that becomes my hot take.
The only reason why I disagree with Fnatic or even Flash Wolves taking it is because of level ones. When you're in a best of 5, level ones become less and less and less of like a priority when it comes to like tilting the game into your favor, because then teams often set up just a line of scrimmage for the river, and so to where neither team invades and you just do standard, right? Well, when you're playing standard against Kingzone, that's their fucking territory. So in that regards, that's a slight edge that I give to them, but it's mostly the draft to where I think they'll be able to adapt. They've already adapted to the meta thus far, and Flash Wolves, they got ahead, they had a running head start in terms of the meta within MSI, but now that Kingzone has, caught their breath, I think they'll be able to totally acclimate themselves to the meta, and with the level ones, especially against Fnatic, if they do make it past RNG, or even level 2 cheeses from MLXG, I don't think it's necessarily going to phase them as hard as it did within the group stages. So,
And that's a really interesting point you make, Zenda. Sorry, I'm butting in again, but given Kingzone is currently in the 3rd place of group stage, and we have kind of discussed that the biggest reason may be because Kingzone haven't fully adapted to the early scrimmage level 1 meta just yet. So if you flip it around, Kingzone has the most potential to improve between the group stage and the semi-finals.
That's pretty much true.
Yeah,
Yeah.
probably. But yeah, sorry, that was me. Back
I
to
mean,
you.
like they definitely have the highest ceiling, and I think that's why we rated them so highly in the last edition of League Around the World. But yeah, at the same time, I just feel like RNG have been so insanely strong, man. Like even against the upswing Team Liquid that actually looked good, it wasn't enough. RNG are just too strong, and I think in the head-to-head, RNG are just gonna take it. Yeah, and I actually think that RNG are the best team in the tournament, so they will show that in best of 5 scenario realistically as well. Partially because, I mean, we haven't really discussed Cuz, but I think like as a sub, having the option of subbing in Karsa, or like swapping between Karsa and MLXG, is stronger than swapping between Peanut and Cuz, because I feel like neither of them are on their peak level right now. But MLXG, when he has a really good game, is freaking amazing. When he has a horrible game, he's MLXD. But then you still have the option of Karsa, who so far has been playing amazingly, who's had a really solid LPL spring split. People rating him really highly. And yeah, I definitely think that Uzi is just the mad dog. Uzi's just gotta take it.
What's your hot take, Izento?
good points.
Year of the Uzi.
Oh, Hot take. I thought that was the hot take.
Izento's hot take is that NA is still greater than EU.
Oh yeah, it's really hard for him to make any hot takes.
That might be the case at Rift Rivals.
I mean, it's not really a hot take, it's just delusional at this point.
I'm just drinking the Kool-Aid at this point.
Hey.
So.
Since Steve is watching it, he's looking for that spawning Team Liquid, so give him slack.
I mean, We've privately talked about this. I still think that NA will take it probably at Rift Royals because I think like the top 3 teams of NA are probably a bit better than the top 3 teams overall in Europe.
Yeah, actually, I think so too.
Then again, you haven't even seen EU's best jungler. You think Broxa is good? Wait till you see Xerxes.
Ooh, okay. All right, I haven't watched him for a while.
Kingzone was. You thought BDD was good. We have this mid laner called Faker.
Right.
That's their backup mid laner.
Just saying, you know.
Well, what if Teddy actually swaps or like changes teams in the off season to SKT? Then SKT actually look freaking dangerous again. Is
Bang's
that?
good too. Hey.
Jesus! Don't. Hey, you have a responsibility as a journalist to not put these.
I said, what if? It's just like
no, I'm just kidding. No, that actually sounds pretty dope.
Yeah, I mean there were some.
Realistically,
get on it, I know you're watching.
Bang and Wolf are in a full-year contract, so that is realistically not possible. Yeah, just breaking your dreams.
Just someone buy him out for 5 million.
Yeah, but like the problem is that like Faker's contract is apparently so insane that they have to like budget every other player kinda, and like Bang and Wolf also have insane contracts, so it's like
Teddy's the perfect person.
But he's gonna be expensive at this point. Like he just hard carried freaking Engineer all day, so it's like
Genius.
That's just how it goes.
Okay, next time. We can discuss it next time.
Yeah, next time. Next time, Teddy, the best AD after Uzi in the world, maybe. But I think this this episode was really enjoyable in the way that I didn't even have to make that many EU versus NA jokes, and I still had a lot of fun.
Oh man, like, I'm so glad you didn't.
It was only like around 5 or 10 or so. I just had my fair share. Yeah. So yeah,
I can't make any at this point until Rift Rivals. So it's whatever.
Yeah, and like
NA fans, you better thank me. Okay, I'm just saying, taking this abuse, just sitting here getting ragged on. We'll have our time. Don't you worry, guys.
Hey,
2022 league is dead in every other country than NA. That's when they finally get shot.
Hey, like despite LCK underperforming. I just gotta say I really enjoyed MSI, and I said it in the beginning, but like despite being the LCK fan, I'm so glad this is not every other team versus Korea, which is like a dimension ahead. I'm really actually glad that it's not like that. I'm glad to see different metas. I'm glad to see upcoming rookies play so well. I'm excited to watch every day, even though that gave me a lot of sleep deprivation, but yeah, I'm happy.
The gap is closing between China and Korea.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, and
that is the only gap that is closing here.
And Taiwan.
For sure. But like, I have to wonder because like at Worlds, Flash Wolves were like, and that's why everyone so underrated them so heavily, and then they come into MSI and they just prove everyone wrong. So yeah, it's impressive.
Well, see, that's another episode I think is the gap closing and how NA and EU seem to be stagnating. I don't know. I at least in my opinion, it's.
I think I mean the fact that NA has by far the heaviest resources and still puts in performances like going 0-4 is worrying, and of course there will be a lot of talk about that in the upcoming weeks and months, especially in case like actually if Fnatic makes it to the finals. Just imagine the situation. Like we had last year's MSI, G2 makes it to the finals. We had Worlds. Again, EU simply outperforms NA, even though the resources were completely up to tilt. Now you have NA franchising coming in. You have a $1 million training facility for Team Liquid. You have Impact, who's getting literally more than $1 million per year, according to Jacob Wolf, quotation marks. asterisks, etc. Legal business safety net.
We don't know anything.
Please don't sue Steve. But yeah, like you have all these amazing numbers and like so much money getting thrown around, and still NA doesn't perform. What is wrong here? We're gonna talk about that maybe next time. Maybe we're gonna talk about MSI. Maybe we're gonna talk about Rift Rivals. Anyway, let us know what you want to hear us talk about. Thank you very much for listening and watching. I think this was a fantastic episode. Thank you very much, Izento, and thank you very much, Ashley, for joining me on this trip. Is there anything you would like to say, Izento?
NA greater than no, just fucking man, NA garbage bag right now. I don't know. There was a conversation on Twitter about I guess the player base being somewhat responsible
but like that is also sometimes because like Taiwan doesn't have a huge player base, Vietnam doesn't, and shit. Like,
well,
Vietnam doesn't have a huge
there
player
was
base.
this conversation about that. No, I think that's completely false. In terms of Vietnam not having a large player base, I think that's bullshit. But regardless, though, there seems to be something wrong with North America. And to that point, it's that it seems like North America just doesn't give a shit that there's a problem. It's like we've said like all these circumstances into which North America has a problem, whether it be player base, whether it be management, whether it be the players themselves, whether it be our solo queue, whatever you want to call it. We've named multiple things which have problems in terms of our entire like ecosystem, like as an esport. And it's at some point that someone needs to do something about it. Yeah. So I don't know. Hopefully we can figure that shit out, because MSI is a good reflection on that. So
for sure. Ashley, any final words?
Like I just talked about how great MSI has been for me so far. This is a weird observation, but as a League of Legends fan, not an LCK fan, I hope Fnatic wins this in their home ground. Do you know, because like except for maybe NA and LPL, every region needs more hype and resources as they can possibly get. Still, despite the fact that League of Legends is growing so quickly, and I just hope that EU gets most out of this MSI hype. Yeah, so even if Fnatic wins and like Kingzone doesn't make it, I'll actually be pretty happy that EU is getting most out of this. Yeah.
I would be very happy, even though I have some. I would have some bets to fulfill. So fun fact: if Fnatic make finals, I will have a temporary tattoo of Reckless's tattoos for week 1 of EULCS. That will be interesting. And if they win it, I will sing Euphoria in nothing but my underwear in front of the EULCS studio. So that will be an interesting watch.
We'll have to.
Luckily, I had to do all those push-ups because Fnatic actually made it to Paris. I had to do all those push-ups, so it's a bit more okay-ish.
So you'll be fit at least.
I'll be somewhat arguably-ish fit as a nerd can be. But yeah, I think MSI has been great for multiple reasons. I hope that honestly though, like from a European perspective, I hope that NA finally gets their shit together someday, because even though it went down to the tiebreaker, it's the best storyline, and it's the best storyline for me because usually we win it. It's like the last 5 or 6 tiebreakers, we all won them. But at the same time, seeing NA fail over and over, and of course viewership potentially taking a hit off that as well, is sad to see. And I hope that soon there will be stuff fixed, but that will be most likely the topic of our next video. We're going to do some research on that. It's going to be fun. Ooh. Make sure to tune in. Thank you very much again, Ashley and Izento. And to everyone still watching, you're amazing. To everyone still listening, you're amazing as well, of course. We're going to put this on SoundCloud as well, hopefully. And yeah, let us know what you thought. Any feedback is very much appreciated. This was Darius as well as Ashley and Izento, of course. And I hope you have a good day, and we'll see you guys next time at League Around the World episode number 3. Peace!